The market encounter. The colony market was loud and crowded, filled with voices, smells, and footsteps. Merchants shouted prices, children laughed, and carts rolled over the dusty ground. Humans bargained over vegetables, bread, and meat. The sun hung high, shining on the wooden stalls. Among the crowd moved an alien woman, her skin pale blue, her hair tangled and dirty. She wore torn cloth around her shoulders. In her arms she carried a thin child, his face small and fragile, his eyes too large for his weak body. The boy pressed against her chest, too tired to cry. His stomach growled, but he had no strength left to speak. The mother's eyes searched from one stall to another. Every loaf of bread looked like treasure. Every basket of fruit seemed like gold. She licked her lips nervously. Her child's breathing was shallow. She whispered to him softly, "Just a little food, my little star. Just a little." Her voice cracked as she said it. She moved closer to a stall where fresh bread lay stacked in a neat pile. The human farmer who owned the stall was a broad man with sunburned skin and strong hands. He was busy talking to another customer, his back turned for a moment. The alien mother's heart raced. She hugged her child tighter and reached out. Her thin fingers grabbed one loaf. She held it to her chest and turned quickly. She walked fast, her legs shaking, then started to run. The bread was heavy to her weak body, but she clutched it like life itself. Her child opened his mouth as if he knew what she had taken. His dry lips trembled. "Thief!" someone shouted. The human farmer turned, his eyes narrowing as he saw the blue-skinned woman running with his bread. His voice thundered across the market. "Stop her!" People turned, eyes wide. Some gasped, some shouted. A few men stepped forward to block her path. She tried to run faster, but her legs failed her. Her bod. "I too weak." The child in her arms made her stumble. Her breath grew sharp. She pushed through a narrow gap between stalls, her bare feet kicking up dust. Behind her, heavy footsteps pounded the ground. The farmer gave chase, his strong legs carrying him quickly. The crowd began to follow, hungry for drama. Voices rose. "Catch her! Catch the alien thief!" Her chest burned, her arms ached, her child whimpered. The bread almost slipped from her grip. She looked back for a moment, seeing the farmer closing in. Fear surged through her. She tried to push herself harder, but her body betrayed her. Her knees buckled. She stumbled forward and fell onto the dirt. The bread rolled away, landing in the dust. Her child cried weakly, the sound thin and broken. The mother tried to rise, her arms shaking as she pulled the child close again. But her strength was gone. Her face pressed into the ground. Her lips trembled. The farmer reached her, his shadow falling over her body. The crowd gathered in a circle, voices sharp and angry. "Punish her, thief, thief!" they shouted. Some spat on the ground, others pointed fingers. Children peered from behind their parents, wide-eyed at the sight. The alien mother lifted her face, dirt clinging to her skin. Tears filled her eyes. Her lips moved slowly. She spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Please," she begged. "Please, my child is hungry." Her words cut through the noise. The crowd fell silent for a brief moment. The farmer stood above her, his eyes on the thin child clinging to her chest. The boy's ribs showed through his skin. His small hand clutched at his mother's arm. His eyes, half closed, begged silently. The mother lowered her head again, pressing her cheek against her son's hair. Her tears dripped onto the dusty ground. Her body trembled. "Please," she said again, her voice broken. The market waited, everyone watching the farmer, waiting to see what he would do. His fists clenched, his chest rose and fell with heavy breaths. He looked at the bread lying in the dirt, then back at the alien child. "Live." Her plea spilled into the dust, broken and desperate. The farmer looked down at her for a long moment. The memory of another child flashed in his mind, his own, long gone. He clenched his jaw, his hand tightened around the bread. The crowd waited, the air heavy with judgment, the woman weak with shame. And then, without warning, the farmer bent down and placed the bread into her hands. Gasps rippled through the market. The mother froze, staring at the gift as if she could not believe it was real. The child made a tiny sound, half cry, half whimper, his hand reaching toward the loaf. The farmer spoke again, his voice sharp this time. "Enough," he told the crowd. "She will not die of hunger today." His tone left no space for argument. The villagers exchanged uneasy glances. Some muttered under their breath, but none dared step forward. The alien mother clutched the bread against her chest, pressing it between herself and her child. Her tears dripped onto the crust. She whispered, "Thank you, thank you," again and again. The child reached up with trembling fingers and tore off a piece, chewing slowly, his hollow eyes brightening for the first time. The crowd began to drift away, still whispering, still angry, but with no power to change the man's choice. The farmer stood tall, his shadow stretched long across the dirt, his eyes still dark with the weight of a decision that could not be undone. And as the alien mother fed her child piece by piece, the question lingered in the air. Why had the human shown mercy, and what would come of it? Shelter in the barn. The market slowly emptied after the commotion, but whispers followed the farmer as he carried the alien woman and her child away. His strong arms lifted her as if she weighed no more than a bundle of straw. Her child clung to her chest, clutching the loaf of bread tightly. The crowd stared, but none stepped forward, their eyes sharp with judgment, yet their feet unwilling to challenge the farmer's will. The path from the market to his farm was long. Fields stretched wide under the fading sun. Dust rose with each step of his boots. The woman stirred weakly in his arms. "Why?" she whispered, her voice almost gone. "Why are you helping us?" Her eyes, half closed, studied his face as though trying to understand the mystery of a human's heart. The farmer did not answer. His jaw set tight, his eyes fixed on the horizon. He kept walking, his silence heavier than words. The child shifted, letting out a faint whimper, his tiny hand still gripping the bread as if afraid it might vanish. At last the farm came into view. A weathered house stood beside wide fields of wheat. A barn rested at the edge of the land, its wooden beams strong but old. The farmer pushed the door open with his shoulder and stepped inside. The barn smelled of hay and earth, the air warmer than the market's dusty streets. He laid the woman gently on a pile of hay. The child curled against her, still holding his precious meal. The woman blinked, tears sliding down her cheeks. "Why not leave us?" she asked again. "Others would." Her voice shook with both fear and gratitude. The farmer looked at her for a long moment, his eyes dark. Then he turned without a word and fetched a jug of water. He placed it beside her. "Drink," he said simply. His voice was low, rough like gravel, but not unkind. She lifted the jug with trembling hands, letting her child sip first. The boy's lips touched the water carefully, his small throat moving as he swallowed. He coughed softly, but then smiled faintly for the first time. The mother's heart tightened at the sight. She drank next, letting the coolness wash away the dust in her mouth. For a while there was only silence. The barn creaked, animals shuffled in their stalls. The child ate what remained of the bread, slow bites as if fearing each piece might be his last. The farmer leaned against a wooden post, arms crossed, watching them without speaking.
"Out her eyes, you should not help us," she said. "They will come, the villagers, the guards, they will say you betrayed your own kind." Her words carried the weight of warning. She knew the danger he invited by taking her in. The farmer shrugged, his gaze fixed on the lantern light flickering in the shadows. "Let them talk," he muttered, his tone heavy with something old, something rooted in his past. The woman bowed her head, pressing a hand to her child's back. The boy's breathing slowed. Soft and steady, he fell asleep in her arms, crumbs of bread still on his lips. She stroked his hair, whispering in her own language, a lullaby broken by tears. As night fell, the barn grew quiet. The farmer brought a blanket and placed it over them. The woman tried to protest, her voice weak. "We do not belong here," she said. "We are strangers, outcasts." Her eyes glistened in the lantern glow. The farmer's eyes softened for just a second. "So am I," he replied, almost to himself. The words hung in the air, leaving her puzzled. What did he mean? Why would a human farmer see himself as an outcast? The question lingered without answer. The village, however, did not stay silent. That very night, whispers spread from door to door. The farmer hides the alien thief in his barn. He feeds her, protects her. Some spat in disgust. Some warned it would bring trouble from beyond. Still others feared it might invite old enemies. Back in the barn, the alien mother lay awake though her child slept peacefully. Her body trembled not from hunger now but from fear of what tomorrow might bring. She closed her eyes tightly, whispering thanks under her breath. Her last thought before sleep was a prayer that her child might see another sunrise. The farmer stood by the barn door, leaning against the frame, his eyes fixed on the stars above the fields. Memories haunted him, an image of a knot. Her child, another time. The ache in his chest was sharp. He had not spoken of it for years. Perhaps that was why he could not leave the alien woman to die in the street. The night deepened, the barn quieted, suspense lingered in the silence. Outside, the world judged. Inside, an unexpected bond had begun, a bond born not of trust yet, but of need and fragile mercy. And as the stars shone cold above the farm, the story of the alien mother and her child was no longer just theirs. It had now become part of the farmer's life too, though neither of them yet understood how much it would change everything.
Whispers of the village. Morning light spilled across the fields, painting the wheat in shades of gold. The barn doors creaked open as the farmer stepped out, his boots heavy with dew. Behind him, the alien mother stirred from her restless sleep. Her child still rested in her arms, breathing softly. For the first time in many days, he did not wake crying from hunger. The farmer left them inside with a bucket of fresh water and a piece of bread. He carried his tools to the field, yet he could already feel the weight of eyes on him. From the road beyond his land, villagers walked in small groups, some slowing to watch his barn, some whispering behind hands. By midday, the gossip had spread across the whole village. At the baker's shop, people spoke in low voices. "He shelters the thief." At the well, women muttered as they drew water. "She will bring sickness, she will bring trouble." At the tavern, men drank and argued. "A farmer who sides with an alien is no farmer at all, he betrays his people." The words traveled fast, sharper than blades. By evening, even children repeated them, pointing toward the farm and saying, "That is where the alien hides." Their voices carried the fear they had learned from their parents. Inside the barn, the alien mother tried to help. She swept the floor with a bundle of straw. She gathered eggs from the hens, her movements weak but steady. She wanted to show she was not useless, that she could repay kindness in some small way. The farmer watched her quietly, saying little, but when her child laughed softly at the sight of a goat sniffing his hand, the farmer's lips almost curved into a smile. Still, unease grew. That night, as the farmer sat alone at his table, 3 men from the village knocked on his door, their faces hard, their voices firm. "We heard you took her in," one said. "You know what she is." Another added, "It is not rain. Human food for human mouths." The third crossed his arms. "Send her away before more follow, before danger comes." The farmer's eyes narrowed. His hand rested on the table, steady as stone. "She is not a danger," he said, his voice calm but heavy. "She is a mother with a starving child." The men exchanged glances. One spat on the ground. "A thief is still a thief," he muttered. They left with threats unspoken but clear. The farmer closed the door slowly, the wood shaking as he leaned against it. He knew the whispers had grown into something sharper. In the barn, the alien mother sensed it too. Her eyes darted toward every sound. Every step outside made her tense. She held her child close at night, whispering lullabies that trembled with fear. She had known cruelty before, but now she feared her presence would harm the one who saved her. The child, however, began to recover. Color returned slowly to his cheeks. His laughter, faint but real, echoed in the barn. He followed the farmer sometimes, toddling after him through the hay, his small hands reaching for tools too heavy for him. The sight softened the silence that had long wrapped around the farmer's heart. But beyond the farm, the village's voice grew louder. "The farmer has lost his mind," they said. "First he gives her bread, now he gives her shelter." Rumors twisted like snakes. Some claimed she was a spy, others swore she carried disease. Fear fueled every tale, and anger grew with it. One evening, as the farmer returned from the fields, he found a crude mark carved into his barn door. It was the shape of an X, a warning. He traced it with his rough fingers, his jaw tightening. Someone wanted him to know they watched. Someone wanted him to know they would not stay silent much longer. Inside, the alien mother saw the mark too. Her breath caught. She turned to him with wide eyes. "They will come for a..." she whispered, clutching her child. "You must send us away before they harm you." Her voice carried both fear and sorrow. Woman covered her mouth with her hand, tears streaming down her face. Her child stirred, whimpering softly. That night, the farm was heavy with silence. The stars burned cold in the sky. The farmer sharpened his old axe by lantern light, his hands steady, his eyes thoughtful. In the barn, the alien mother did not sleep. She kept her child wrapped in the blanket, her ears straining for every sound outside. The village did not sleep either. Word of the confrontation spread like fire. Some said the farmer had lost his mind. Others whispered that the men who claimed her had lied. A few, quietly, admitted they had seen the child's hunger in his eyes, and their hearts were troubled. But louder voices drowned them. Voices of fear, voices of anger. They said the farmer had chosen aliens over his own kind. They said he was a traitor to his people. And while the village boiled with talk, the farmer sat in his chair by the window, watching the dark road that led to his land. He knew the hunters would return. He knew they would not stop. And yet he also knew one thing with certainty. He would not give up the alien mother and her child, no matter the cost. The night deepened, the barn creaked, and in the stillness, the air itself seemed to hold its breath. The return of the hunters was certain, but what would follow was unknown. Suspense hung heavy over the farm, as if the ground itself waited for the coming storm. The hidden truth. The night after the hunters came, the barn was filled with heavy silence. The alien mother sat on the hay with her child asleep in her arms. The boy's breathing was soft and steady now, but her own heart raced with fear. She could not rest, not when danger walked so close. The farmer entered quietly, carrying a lantern, his steps slow, His face shadowed by the light, he stopped a few feet from her, resting against the wooden beam. His voice was low. Steady. They will come again, he said. They will not give up. The mother lowered her head, her fingers brushed her child's hair. Then you should not risk yourself, she whispered. I cannot repay what you have done already, and yet you stand against your own people for me. Her voice cracked with sorrow. You deserve truth. The farmer said nothing, but his eyes narrowed, waiting. The barn creaked as wind pressed against the old boards. In that quiet, the mother began to speak, her words slow, broken by memories she could barely face. I once belonged to a house, she said, not as guest, not as worker, but as property. Her voice shook. They kept me to clean, to serve, to bow. I was never fed enough, never allowed rest. I was struck when I faltered, beaten when I slowed. Her eyes glistened with tears. The farmer's jaw tightened, his hand curled into a fist by his side. She continued, her gaze fixed on her child. When I bore him, they called him a curse. They said his cries disturbed their nights. They starved us more. I begged for scraps. I begged for mercy, but none came. Her voice fell to a whisper. One night I ran. I carried him through the dark. We hid in fields. We slept under cold stone. But hunger followed. Hunger does not care for walls or chains. She held her child closer, her tears falling on his pale cheek. I stole because he had not eaten for days. I thought only of his belly, not of my life. If you had let them take me today, I would not have begged for myself, only for him. The farmer's chest rose and fell heavily. He stepped closer, the lantern's glow warming the straw between them. His eyes softened, though his face remained stern. And the men, he asked quietly, the ones who came here, are they your masters? The woman shuddered. Yes, she whispered. They hunt me still. They claim me as theirs, as if chains could bind us so. Will forever. Her voice grew hard for a moment, then cracked again. If they take me, I will not return alive. And my child will not survive without me.
The farmer shook his head slowly, his eyes dark. No, he said simply, his voice unshaken, you will not leave. The barn filled with silence. The woman pressed her forehead to her child's hair. Tears slipped down her cheeks. For the first time, she felt both safe and in danger at the same time. Safe with him, but hunted by the world outside. And so the whispers of the village became more than talk. They became the shadow of something heavier. Something coming closer. Suspense hung in the air. For the farmer, the mother, and the child, life had already begun to change. But the real test was still ahead. Waiting in the dark, the hunter's return. The village whispers soon turned into footsteps on the dirt road. One evening, when the sky burned orange with sunset, the farmer noticed shadows moving at the edge of his fields. 3 men walked with purpose, their boots heavy, their shoulders broad. Behind them came 2 more, armed with sticks and rusty blades, their eyes sharp, their mouths tight with anger. The alien mother felt it before she saw them. She was inside the barn feeding her child the last of the bread. Suddenly her body froze, her ears catching the sound of many steps approaching. She pulled her child close, her arms trembling, her heart pounded with a memory too fresh, too cruel. The barn door creaked open, and the farmer stepped in, his face hard, his jaw set. Stay quiet, he told her, stay behind me. His voice carried no hesitation, only a deep certainty. The mother clutched her child tighter, retreating into the corner of the barn, her breath shallow, her eyes wide. Then came the knock on the farmhouse door, heavy and angry. The farmer stepped out, closing the barn behind him. The men stood waiting, dust swirling around their boots. Their leader was tall, with scars across his face, his eyes cold, his voice louder than the others. We know she is here, he said. Give us the alien woman, she belongs to us. The farmer's brow furrowed, his hands rested at his sides, strong and steady. She belongs to no one, he replied, his voice deep and firm. The leader sneered. She is a runaway slave, our property, and you are hiding her. The words stung the air like poison. The farmer did not move, his eyes narrowed. Not while she carries a starving child, he said, his tone like iron. The men behind the leader growled. One lifted his stick and pointed it at the barn. If you protect her, you make yourself our enemy, he spat. Inside, the alien mother pressed her forehead to her child's hair, her mind filled with the old fear. She remembered chains, whips, and the endless hunger of servitude. She whispered softly, don't cry, little one, don't make a sound. Her tears fell silently into his hair. Outside, the tension thickened. The leaders stepped closer. Do not test us. "Farmer," he warned, "one woman and one sickly child are not worth your land, your life, or your peace." He expected the farmer to yield, to step aside as many would, but the farmer stood tall, his chest rose and fell slowly, his eyes did not waver. "Leave," he said, his voice calm but sharper than steel. The men exchanged glances, murmuring, the leader's scarred face twisted into a sneer. "You will regret this," he said, spitting in the dirt. He gestured, and the men turned away, their footsteps heavy as they left down the road. The farmer watched them until the shadows swallowed their forms. Only then did he let out a long breath. He turned and opened the barn door. The alien mother was there, crouched in the corner with her child clutched tightly, her eyes wide with terror, her body trembling. "They know where I am now," she whispered. "They will come back." Her voice broke. "You must send us away, before they hurt you." She wanted to protect HFY, even while her own body shook with fear. Except for the soft breathing of the boy, the farmer stared at him, his ribs thin, his small hands clutching his mother's dress. Even in sleep, something deep stirred in the farmer's chest. A memory, sharp and painful, rose unbidden. Another child, long ago, his child, lost to fever before her second year. He remembered her cries, her tiny hands gripping his finger, the silence that came after. The ache never left him. Now, standing in his barn, he saw that same fragility in the alien boy, the same desperate will to live. His throat tightened, his heart ached. He crouched down, his voice lower, softer. "I too lost a child," he admitted, the words heavy, as though dragged from deep inside. "She was small, fragile, the fever took her. Nothing I did could save her." His eyes darkened. "Since that day, my house has been silent." The mother lifted her eyes, surprise breaking through her sorrow. She whispered, "Then why risk your heart again?" Her voice trembled. "Why take us in when pain might find you once more?" The farmer looked at her, his expression hard yet wounded. "Because no child should starve in my sight," he said, his voice steady. "Not again, not while I still have breath." Tears welled in the mother's eyes. She lowered her head, unable to answer. She pressed her lips to her child's forehead, whispering thanks in her own tongue. The lantern light flickered, casting shadows across the barn walls. The air grew heavy with shared sorrow. For the first time, their pain stood side by side, not as strangers but as souls marked by loss. Yet outside, danger still lingered. The hunters had not vanished, the village still watched, and the path ahead was uncertain. But inside the barn, in that fragile moment, something unspoken formed between the human farmer and the alien mother. It was not trust yet, not friendship, but the beginning of something deeper, a bond shaped by grief and lit by mercy, a bond that might stand against the storm gathering beyond the fields. The mother leaned against the hay, exhausted, her child safe in her arms. The farmer stood guard by the barn door, the lantern in his hand, his shadow long, strong against the wood. And as the night deepened, they both knew, truth had been spoken, but the fight was not over. The hunters would return, the village would press harder, and the fragile peace of the farm was about to break. The new family. Dawn broke with heavy clouds. The farmer stood outside his barn sharpening his axe, the sound of steel against stone cutting through the quiet. His eyes were dark from sleeplessness. He knew today would not pass in peace. Inside the barn, the alien mother held her child close. The boy was stronger now, his cheeks no longer hollow. His laughter returned in small bursts. Each sound gave her both joy and fear. Joy because he lived. Fear because the world outside wanted to tear that life away. By midday, the villagers gathered. Word had spread. The hunters returned, this time with more men, and behind them came the villagers, curious and angry. The road to the farm filled with voices. Some shouted for justice, some for punishment, some only came to watch. The crowd's noise grew louder, echoing like thunder. The farmer stepped forward, standing before his gate, his axe rested against his shoulder, his broad frame unshaken. The hunters sneered at him, their leader's scarred face twisting with pride. "Step aside," he demanded, "give us what is ours." His voice carried like a whip across the crowd. The alien mother peeked from the barn, fear gripping her heart. Her child clutched her neck, sensing the danger. She whispered to him, "Stay quiet, little star." Her hands shook, but she would not let go of him. "Not again." The farmer's voice rose, steady as iron. "She is one's property. he said. The crowd stirred, gasps and whispers passing between them. The leader spat into the dirt. You risk your life for an alien thief, he growled. You disgrace your kind.
Shadows of acceptance. The days after the confrontation passed slowly. The farm grew quieter, though the memory of the crowd and the hunters still lingered like a shadow on the wind. The alien mother worked alongside the farmer now. She gathered eggs in the morning, carried water from the well, and helped mend tools when her hands were not too tired. Her child followed her everywhere, his small feet pattering across the barn floor, his laughter chasing away silence. The farmer watched them as he tilled the fields, his eyes often drawn to the boy, who no longer looked like a starving ghost. The child's cheeks grew rounder, his steps steadier. His smile, though faint at times, carried warmth the farmer had not felt in years. Sometimes, when the child called for his mother in the soft alien tongue, the farmer felt his chest tighten with both ache and comfort. Yet outside the farm's borders, whispers still grew. The villagers did not forget quickly. Some had softened that day, their anger shaken by the sight of a hungry child, but others still muttered in anger. In the tavern, voices rose. The farmer has betrayed us, one man barked. If he shelters one alien, more will come. Another replied, and when they do, who will feed our children? Their fears spread, feeding the fire. One night, the farmer heard footsteps again, not many this time, only one. He stepped outside, axe in hand, his eyes narrowed against the moonlight. At his gate stood an old woman, bent with age. Her hands clutched a basket covered with cloth. She lowered her gaze when he approached. It is bread, she whispered. For the child. She placed the basket on the ground and turned to leave without another word. The farmer watched her go, silent. Something inside him shifted. The alien mother discovered the gift in the morning. Her eyes filled with tears as she uncovered the warm loaves she pressed, her hands to her face, whispering blessings in her own tongue. Not all hate us, she said softly. Some see. The farmer nodded once, saying nothing, but the corner of his mouth twitched as though resisting a smile. Still, danger had not vanished. A week later, the scarred leader of the hunters returned alone. He did not storm the gate, nor shout. Instead, he stood by the road, watching the farm, his cold eyes fixed on the barn. The farmer saw him from the field. He gripped his axe but did not move forward. The leader sneered and finally turned away, leaving a trail of dust behind. It was a warning, not an end. That night, the mother could not sleep. She held her child close, her heart beating fast. He will not stop, she whispered. He will come again. With more. He will not forgive. Her voice trembled. The farmer sat across from her, lantern light carving shadows into his face. His voice was steady. Then let him come, he said. We will be ready. The boy stirred in his sleep, murmuring softly. The farmer's gaze softened. His rough hand rested gently on the child's small back. For a moment, silence filled the barn, not heavy with fear, but thick with a new kind of bond. The mother saw it too, and for the first time she believed his promise. The next morning something unexpected happened. A group of children from the village wandered near the farm. They peeked through the fence, curious. When they saw the alien boy, they pointed, but not with hate. They called out, "Do you want to play?" Their laughter carried across the field. The alien boy looked at his mother nervously. She hesitated, but the farmer gave a small nod. The boy toddled forward, shy at first, then smiling as he joined their simple game of tossing pebbles. The sound of children's laughter filled the air. Villagers passing by stopped to watch. Some frowned, others softened, their eyes troubled, as though something in their hearts shifted when they saw the boy playing like any child.
Seen as child, not as curse, she whispered. Her voice shook with both joy and disbelief. The farmer stood beside her, his eyes calm. He is only a boy, he said. That is all he ever was. The change was small, fragile, but real. Not all villagers turned their hearts, but some did, and with each day, the whispers grew weaker, replaced slowly by silence, by the simple truth that life continued, that the farm stood, that the boy laughed, but the scarred hunter's shadow still lingered, far away. He sharpened his blade, his hatred burning brighter with every day that passed. The storm was not gone, only waiting, yet for now, under the wide sky and the whispering wheat, the farm held peace, fragile and precious. A human farmer, an alien mother, and her child sat at the wooden table, sharing bread, sharing silence, and unknowingly building a family stronger than fear. And as night fell, the lantern's glow spilled through the cracks of the barn, casting light into the dark, a promise that even in a world of whispers and shadows, kindness could still grow.